If you're a teacher looking for tips on how to incorporate resiliency strategies in your classroom, or a parent with a child that rolls their eyes when you encourage them to practice techniques to strengthen their mental health, our guest today, 25-year teaching veteran Dawn Glassburn, has some great ideas for you. Welcome to the Raising Resilient Kids podcast, where we provide parents, teachers, and coaches with ideas and strategies to help kids and teens build their resilience and achieve their potential in a healthy, fulfilling way. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, sister.
Well, hello there, brother.
I am excited that you'll be coming to visit us in Illinois soon.
I know, I'm so excited. You know, March is a really big month for our family. We have, we're going to be coming out there for Annie's musical, for Mom's birthday, and it's your birthday in March. I'm so excited to come out and celebrate with you.
It'll be fun. Do you want to do anything when you're out here? Any Illinois stuff you've got to do?
Okay, my list of things in this order is always pizza, and seeing my family. It doesn't matter how many days I'm in Chicago. Like if I come to Chicago for 2 days or I come to Chicago for 12, I have to get pizza twice.
All right, so you'll have to pick out which 2 places you want to go to, and I'll even treat, even though it's my birthday.
You mean for real?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Happy birthday to you, to me. I love coming out for these March trips. This will be the 3rd year that I've done it. You know, I'm out in California. Tommy's in Illinois, where we were born and raised. And we started making it a tradition like 3 years ago because my wonderful youngest niece in your family does her high school musicals, and I did my high school musicals, and it's just so fun to watch her perform and to be up on stage. It's just like I look forward to this trip every single year. I literally cross my fingers every time I know she has auditions. I'm like, please make the show, selfishly for me, not even for her.
Yeah, it's Newsies this year, so that'll be fun. A big dance number.
Right, and she's a dancer, so it works out perfectly. And also, like, Newsies is my most favorite movie, basically, of all time. I introduced it to your children.
You did.
And they fell in love with it. So I feel like that theater director, he was doing it for our family because we love Newsies. I'm so excited. And what are you going to do for your birthday? You're going to be the big 7-0.
Yeah, close. Maybe minus 20. I'm actually going to the dress rehearsal of the musical. That's how I'm spending my 50th birthday.
I feel like that is the life of a parent, though. Your birthdays become about your kids, and I feel like even though I know you're laughing, there's probably no place that you would rather be than there.
It is, yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, nothing else I'd rather do. I love that musical and love to watch the kids in their musicals over these years, so it's perfect.
That's so awesome. Yes, no, I'm so excited. Just a few days away until I see you.
Yay! Let's give a quick little update on the contest. So Thank you to those of you who have rated the podcast. I am up by 2.
I'm just shaking my head.
Yes, I am up by 2 of having Mom at our Thanksgiving table. So just a quick reminder for those of you who might have missed last month's podcast, we're doing a little contest. You know, we're trying to get the word out on this podcast. The best way that you can help us do that is by rating the podcast. So we did a little contest where you could pick who gets to have our mom at their Thanksgiving dinner table. If you want to vote for me, throw a review up there. Hopefully it's 5 stars, but whatever you think is appropriate. And in the comments, if you would put Tom and Jeannie or brother and sister, that's a vote for me, or flip it around. But you probably don't want, I don't even need to bother to say that because everybody's going to say brother and sister team. But no, if you want to vote for Jeannie, it would be sister and brother team or Jeannie and Tom. So thanks to everybody who added a review the past month. We appreciate it. All right, you ready to jump into the podcast?
I am ready.
In the past, we started off the podcast with a question from a kid, yet recently we've been getting a lot of questions from parents, teachers, and coaches. So we're going to change things around a little bit. We actually are going to start with a question from a teacher. And actually, this is a question that I've received from many teachers over the years. How do I get a student who has little motivation be open to trying these resiliency techniques? And I think that's a question that probably parents can relate with as well if they have trouble getting kids to especially kids with little motivation to try them out. So to answer this question, I am thrilled to have Dawn Glassburn here. She's been teaching high school for over 25 years. She's a PE health teacher in Byron, Illinois. She actually implemented the Resilient Youth curriculum that Dr. Ode Hennon talked about a couple
Sure.
or two or three sessions ago, two or
Of
three
course.
podcasts ago. So, Dawn, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I just feel so honored and blessed to be part of such a great program in effort to support everyone in their mental health. So thank you.
Well, we appreciate all the work that you've done over the
Yeah.
past 25 years. I would assume you've probably taught thousands, probably tens of thousands of kids over those years. So thank you for all the
It's
efforts you've been
part
doing.
of my passion for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Don, what do you think? Do you have any tips, any tricks for getting kids who have that little motivation to try these techniques out?
I can only share what has worked for me, and I feel that everyone has to embrace their own personality and what works best for them. But for myself, I find being vulnerable helps
Mm.
kids see me as a real person. So I
Ah.
share some of my mental health history, and part of that history is a really dark time in my life where the voice that is not very nice in my head was dominating and telling me how unworthy and I wasn't enough and all that. I had to really mindfully find a better way for me to function in a healthier way for my family, for my job. And I talk a little bit about that voice and how it can be so mean, and that I have used skills like what we're going to be sharing to quiet that voice. Acknowledging that voice is always going to be a part of our life, but it doesn't have to be the driver. And by completing these lessons, we can be more aware of when that voice is present versus our authentic, true, higher self. And I just say, if you can relate to what I'm saying, tune in because I'm
Mhm.
really going to try to support you and I'm always here for you.
I love that, Dawn, because as a student, we see teachers sort of as these like not real humans, but not real people. And the reality is that we all have a voice like that in our head, maybe some more powerful than others. But to hear that authority figure standing right in front of us maybe feels that way too. Even if I'm not totally going to lean into this, it's certainly going to open up my ears a little bit. And I'm going to want to hear what you have to say. So how awesome for you to be so vulnerable with your students and to connect with them in a way like that.
Thank you. Well, Brene Brown is a founder of that vulnerability, and I'm a big fan of hers.
Excellent. Well, Don, maybe can you tell us a little bit about maybe a couple of techniques you use then to handle that voice?
Well, mindfulness and just being aware of my thoughts is a big part of that. So when I get in that negative kind of emotion, it's just a taking notice. Where are my thoughts? Where is my energy right now? And then using those meditations and breathing techniques, some visualization, and counting my blessings, focusing on the good things and not the negative. It's been powerful.
Can you walk us through a little bit of how you have implemented the program, how often you teach it, and any details you have on you implementing these techniques in your classroom?
Sure. When I first took the training, I was just so excited to have a tool post COVID to support these students. So that year, I did it every couple weeks to finish the semester with. But since then, I do one lesson per month. And it works out nice that we can reference the previous lesson of, are you using your breathing? I have a lot of kids in performance type of activities. I have the speech team members, the theater kids, the band, and we talk a lot about the visualization of success along with breathing to help with those nerves and get that relaxation response going. I mean, heck, I was practicing the relaxation response before getting on this today. So, it's just such a powerful thing to reference, and the students are buying in. They'll bring it up before I do.
That is so important because I think a lot of people just think, hey, it's the athletes, but no, everybody, the
Mhm.
musicians, the speech team. I think that's a great one. I never thought of that one as well.
Yeah.
That everybody can benefit from that. You're teaching a lot of different techniques. Are there certain ones that you found really seem to connect with kids?
It really varies on the group of kids. A lot of them like the meditation, but it makes it really uncomfortable for some of those high anxiety
Mm,
students. At the end of all the lessons, I have a reflection piece for kids of what was your takeaway? What tool
mm,
do you think would be beneficial for you? Some kids have written some long paragraphs on is that mindfulness because they do have some trauma and some post
mm.
experiences that are just hard to overcome. And of course, this is not a cure all, but at least it's a tool to give them some support.
Yes, yes. As you were implementing the curriculum, were there any issues, any struggles you had, any obstacles you had to overcome?
Well, for some of the higher anxiety students, it's very uncomfortable during meditation time. That's probably the biggest obstacle. I am at, I don't know if I want to say advantage, but I'm at a point in my career that the students are pretty manageable as far as behavior.
Mm,
And I can just talk to them one on one and say, are you able to just sit quietly and let the others get out of this whatever they can and be respectful? And they can do that. But I observe for the shaking legs, the tapping, that type of
mm,
thing. And I try to quietly rotate around the room and just remind them to take a breath and let it go.
One thing that I've been so enlightened by in almost every conversation that we've had, and you are reiterating it too, is knowing your students, knowing your kids, having those conversations and learning who they are so that you can better help them to grow, to become resilient, to be whoever they're supposed to be. And the fact that you are taking the time to really look at your students and figure out how can I best help you, those are the adults that we need teaching.
Well, I appreciate those words. And I have to share that this is my retirement year. And so I am trying to share with younger teachers that message that
Yeah.
every student is being their best. Their behavior is a reaction to their experiences, what they have learned. And even if it's not most favorable behavior, they just want to be loved and accepted. So
yeah.
try to meet them instead of control them, is
Mhm.
my message to any of the younger teachers, because they will cooperate when you find some common ground. And it may not
Mm,
be the strict guidelines that you would prefer, but there's happy mediums for everyone.
Meet them instead of control them.
yeah.
You know, gosh, that's so,
Yeah.
what words of wisdom. And happy almost retirement.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Don, do you have any success stories you could share from your students over the past years that you've been teaching this stuff?
Oh, it's not a matter of do I, it's focusing to figure out which one to share. I'm thinking of a student right now who's a foster student and was new to our district from a different large school. And they had a very difficult time settling into our school because they were like, I hate this school. They know what
Mm,
I'm doing and they hold me accountable. All I had to do at the last school is keep quiet and they would pass me through. This student was resistant in the beginning, but through checking in with them daily, even if it was just, how are you today? And through these techniques, they overcame some difficult traumas
mm,
enough to try out for our school play. And when I went to see them perform, it was like a whole different kid.
Wow.
So I'm not saying this was the only thing because they were also going to a therapist and getting
Sure.
lots of support
yeah.
from our counselors, but they really changed their body language as we progressed through these lessons to be accepting and open.
Any tips you'd have for other than teachers, maybe for coaches or for parents if they're looking to introduce this to their kids or their athletes?
Well, I am a parent of 3 girls, and I survived their teenage years. So for those parents that have teenagers, they will come back and love you. I promise.
So
It
true.
It's such a challenge to have your own children hear your intentions of love and help because they're in that growth time where they are trying to figure out who they are. So I don't know as a parent, if I would have introduced to my kids this type of thing, they would have rolled their eyes.
Hmm.
Yep.
But if I could suggest maybe getting them on an online platform that they could do it on their own, that would be a way for parents. As far as coaches, Tom, your weekly videos are so great.
Oh,
I've
Thanks.
implemented those into my lessons also. I just feel that anytime you can expose these kids to these techniques of the mindfulness, the breaths, the visualization, they're going to eventually find that as their foundation
Mm.
and not wander as long in the darkness
Yeah.
and the trials that they go through.
Don, I'd agree with you on the, as far as the parent side, it was actually somewhat rewarding. We had my daughter was one of our first guests,
Mhm.
who's now no longer a teenager. And it was kind of fun to hear that, yes, she did listen to me, even though she did roll her eyes when she was a teenager,
And
when I
she
was
still
telling her
does,
all this
let's be
stuff.
real.
And
She
she still
still
does. Yeah, that's true. But she actually was paying attention and does, go back to the things that I taught her when she needs them. So I
Yeah.
agree
That's
with you.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
If you want your child to have good mental health, then you need to be that role model and take the time to work on your own mental health is
Mhm.
just a really good message.
Yeah.
Don, these are three questions that we ask every guest to end the podcast. We always try to teach kids that, hey, there's a certain level of stress and anxiety is inevitable. It's actually good for us. It helps us to grow and things like that. Um, could you talk to us a little bit about maybe something that caused or even maybe still causes you stress and what you do to kind of handle that stress?
Well, I did talk a little bit because that negative voice in my head was probably the focus of my poor mental health.
Mm.
Of course, just being a mom of 3 daughters has its own stress level, plus coaching, teaching. I was youth group leader at the time, very, very busy. If we are people pleasers, as I am, always relying on others' approval to feel good about ourselves, that is the stress that I have let go of. The mindfulness is a big part of that. Instead of trying to make others like me or to feel like if I do all this, then I'm worthy, I focus on being my best authentic self.
Mm.
I've let go of how I'm received and I try to focus on being authentic in my intentions. That has been the best mental health tool for myself.
I love that. I love
Wonderful.
that. Second question then is another thing that we try to tell kids is that, hey, failure is a part of life. If you're, if you're growing, you're going to fail. If you're going to achieve, your potential and live a healthy, authentic life,
Mhm.
you're going to fail here and there. Can you talk to us maybe about one of your failures that you've encountered in your life and either, what it taught you, what you learned from it?
Sure. The topic itself used to really bring sadness to me, but now I actually can smile talking about this failure because of the gift of hindsight.
Mm.
When I was going through a divorce, I felt that I needed a higher pay raise, and I did get my endorsement to be an administrator. There was a position that happened to open in our district right at the time that I finished my administrative certification. So I'm thinking, hey, this is meant to be. Well, there were two internal candidates, myself and my coworker who worked in my department. And it was my opinion, of course, that I was the stronger candidate because I was more organized, a little more tactful in talking with parents, and he got the job.
Mm.
I was still in the mindset of needing approval through outside things, so I
Yeah.
was crushed. It was hard to come back that fall and feel that I failed. But the power of that hindsight, now I try to send blessings to that administrator because they've had some difficult times with the climate of our administrators at that time. He ended up leaving our district. His mental and physical health have been compromised.
Mhm.
And
Mm,
so I look back at the universe was really in my favor
yeah.
by saying no.
Yeah.
And I try to embrace that belief that the universe is always in my favor.
Mhm.
I just need to accept and find the blessings moving forward.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
a great point. One quote I've always heard from many people, assume the universe is conspiring for you. That,
Mm.
yeah, when
Yes.
those failures happen, they're actually if you worked hard and you did your best, it's actually probably in your best interest. And like you said, it's only probably years later that you can look back and realize, oh yeah, this was the best thing for me.
Yeah.
A last question we've got for you is, let's say there's a parent, they've only got a couple minutes, they're tucking their kid into bed at night, or maybe it's a teacher or coach and they've only got a couple minutes left of practice. Can you leave us with one message? Maybe it's something we already talked about, or something that we haven't gotten a chance to mention yet, that you think is kind of the main message that you want to leave everyone with.
Yeah, I've hit on it, but just to remind parents that your child is being their best self and to
Mm,
love them as their best self, even as they're evolving and changing and figuring out who they are, and reminding them of your unconditional love.
that is
Oh,
perfect. A
so
perfect way
true.
to end this podcast. Dawn,
Yes.
thank you so much for being with us. Good luck with retirement. I feel bad. There's going to be a lot of kids out there that I'm sure are going to miss you, because
Yeah.
you are just a wonderful teacher, and we appreciate all you've done for students and for kids in this world. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being on the
Yes.
podcast.
Thank you,
Thank you
Dawn.
for asking me to be a guest. It was such a good time.
I want her to be my teacher, my mentor, my life coach, my everything. She's amazing.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of getting to know her over the past few years, and she's just a phenomenal teacher, phenomenal person. Been doing a lot of great things to help the kids that she works with. I think this just shows how PE and health is a great place to put this in. Now, any teacher can benefit from this, using this with their kids in any subject. But in PE health, and especially the way Dawn does it, is where she spreads it throughout the year. So it's not just, a couple class periods during health class. Kids have crises throughout the year. So if
Definitely.
they can constantly be reminded of this stuff throughout the year, that it's available to them, I think that's a great way to implement this
Yeah.
in the classroom in our schools.
Like a huge takeaway that I had from her is just her commitment and her dedication to her students. Like you can hear it in her
Yeah.
voice, how much she cares about the kids that she is teaching. And I love what she said about the way she introduces, or the way she kind of kicks off these lessons, these techniques, is by sharing her story with her own mental health and being vulnerable with her students. When she said that, I started thinking back to, particularly my high school teachers, and they really teachers don't really feel like real people. They're standing up in front of you all day long. You don't really know. You kind of almost think like they after 3:00, they sort of like disappear into nowhere. Like they don't have real lives, and then they just return, like reappear, bing, at 7 a.m. the next morning. And I really was thinking about myself sitting in a classroom, hearing that teacher that stands in front of me every single day is a real person and has similar feelings, or goes through similar things, or has gone through similar things that maybe I'm going through. It really would help me to connect, and I think to be able to listen to what she's saying and give it a try. Being vulnerable with your students, I'm sure it's very hard as a teacher, but it sounds like she has really found a lot of success in that, and I give her so much credit and so much props for opening herself up to her students the way that she does.
I really like when she talked about that negative voice in your head, and that it's not going to go away, because I've been working on it for decades.
Yeah.
And it's not going to go away. But I love what she said. I think she said, like, it doesn't have to be the driver, and that's not your true authentic voice, and using these different techniques to be able to catch that negative voice and realize, oh wait, this isn't my negative voice.
Yeah.
This isn't my true authentic voice. I gotta kind of either calm myself down, do some breathing, whatever it may be, to get to that kind of inner authentic voice. I thought that was a phenomenal lesson that she shared with us.
Well, I feel like I want to go call Dawn up and like make her my friend. Can you give me her number?
I can, yeah.
Dawn, thank you so much for being on this podcast.
Yes, thank you, Dawn.
And thank you so much to all of you for listening to yet another Raising Resilient Kids podcast. We are so happy that you're here, and thank you for listening.
See you next month. The Raising Resilient Kids podcast is sponsored by Happy You're Here, educational, safe, and joyful videos for kids. Through music, visuals, and sound, your baby, toddler, and preschooler will learn about letters, numbers, and so much more. Happy You're Here is quality screen time that both kiddos and their adults can feel good about. Head to www.youtube.com/@SoHappyYouAreHere to check it out, or click on the link in the show notes.
The Raising Resilient Kids podcast is also sponsored by the Resilient Youth Program. If you're a parent, teacher, or school administrator who wants to incorporate a proven resiliency building program into your school's curriculum, then the Resilient Youth Teach the Teacher program is exactly what you need. This curriculum brings coping skills and life management tools into the school environment to help students better manage daily stress and positively impact their academic performance, mental health, and well-being. For more information, visit the Resilient Youth Teach the Teacher website in the show notes or at www.smarthwp.com/RY4teachers. That's www.smarthwp.com/RY4teachers. The Raising Resilient Kids podcast is produced, hosted, and edited by Sister Brother Team, Jeannie and Tom Klashevitz. Do you have a question you would like answered by one of our expert guests? If so, visit www.smarthwp.com/Raising Resilient Kids podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next month.